This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Bye, asshole.
Oh boy, this is the level of quality we are dealing with today.
What the f*** is this?
This is Fatal Deviation, a 1998 Irish martial arts movie featuring stunning landscapes, amazing character actors, badass stunt works, and the best montage I have ever witnessed.
This feeling inside.
Written, directed, and produced by martial artist James Bennett, this is Ireland's first and, as far as I know, only martial arts action movie. It was intended as a portfolio piece for James Bennett to attract Chinese investors who were, at the time, looking for the next kung fu star. In the film, Bennett plays Bennett, a martial artist who has recently returned to his hometown. After helping a woman, he gets himself into direct conflict with a local drug cartel. Oh, and there's a martial arts tournament hosted by Irish monks. The Shanlin Temple, I guess. All jokes aside, as terrible as this movie looks, James Bennett clearly has some moves. It goes to show that a good kung fu movie needs a lot more than just good kung fu. It needs good filmmaking. And that's what I want to know. What is missing in its filmmaking techniques? Today, let me show you how I study bad films through compare and contrast against good movies. A method that allows me to see things that often goes unnoticed. So, let's take a look at Ireland's first martial arts movie. Let's start with choreography. I'm sure we can all feel how clumsy the fights are, but can you identify the reasons why? To find out, let's ask this question. What is this movie trying to do? Well, it's definitely not pulling off a Jackie Chan. The fights don't have the same operatic rhythm. This movie was made before The Matrix, before the style was popularized in the Western world. So we have to look to older films. Yes, Bruce Lee appears to be a big influence on the film's style. These fights focus more on individual punches and kicks and the physicality of the actor. That means we can use Bruce Lee as the benchmark. By comparing these two scenes, we can start identifying some problems. Problem 1. The downtime. This is far from Bruce's fastest fight, but even here, there is minimal downtime between hits. Whereas in Fatal Deviation, after nearly every hit, you see him waiting for his opponents and readjusting. There is just enough time for the audience to recognize that the opponent is not fighting back. It's like Bennett is punching down on helpless targets. Whatever tension the fight had is dissipated immediately. That leads us to the second and much more important problem, the lack of a progression. Here is a short exchange. Again, all attacks are individual actions. One move doesn't lead to another one. Once an attack is over, both sides reset. Going back to Bruce Lee again, this exchange starts with a tease, followed by a hit, and then a combo of 2 hits, and finally a full-on assault. There is a progression of tension, it escalates. Since Bennett is clearly a fan of Jean-Claude Van Damme, let's also check out Bloodsport. In this scene, Van Damme's kick don't work, so he punches, which leads to him being trapped, which leads to him resorting to headbutts. The character has to solve problems through increasingly more desperate measures. The tension grows. Fatal Deviation has hints of that, but things rarely build up to anything. It makes a pretty frustrating viewing experience, as if the story is going nowhere. And that, to me, is the problem with the fights. They go nowhere. The longer you stare at it, the less interesting it gets. That's how I learned from bad movies. Through comparing and contrasting films of a similar style, we managed to identify the problem and realize what not to do. If you want to make movies, but don't want some internet jackass to make fun of your work some 24 years later. 24 years. Wow, I feel old. Anyway, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with a massive collection of creative classes for you to improve your artistic skill. Class topics include screenwriting, cinematography, and editing. Take a look at Cinematography Basics, Understanding Filmmaking Style, a class that teaches you the tools, techniques, and languages of cinematography, kinda like what we do on this channel. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity. Whether you want to learn how to make your own films or just want to gain a greater appreciation for the art, you should take a look at their great selection of classes and give Skillshare a try today. Now, let's move on to cinematography. How the movie is filmed, how the movie looks. And it looks absolutely stunning, I must say. Okay, they all look stupidly awkward, but again, why? Take a look at this small moment. What is this movie trying to do? Well, it's a pretty iconic Bruce Lee pose, so here is how Bruce Lee did it. Immediately, I spotted 3 differences. Firstly, the camera perspective. This scene from Enter the Dragon is shot like a dialogue scene. Classic shot, reverse shot. We get to see Bruce Lee in his full glory and the unfazed reaction of the antagonist. Whereas in Fatal Deviation, we only get to see the bad guy's reaction before we cut back to the wide shot. We never see Bennett's performance, even in the wide shot, his body is partially obscured. Secondly, the camera angle. And the dragon places the camera below the hip. This makes Bruce Lee look taller and his pose more imposing. It's actually a very common trick used in martial arts movies. Once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Even the aforementioned Bloodsport follows this rule. Back to Fatal Deviation again, and we see the camera is actually placed either flat or worse, angled downward, thus shrinking everyone, making the action look awkward. Thirdly, the camera distance. In the scene with Bruce Lee, there is a clear compositional progression. We go from a wide shot to a medium close-up to a close-up. With each shot, the space between the 2 opponents is further compressed. Whereas Fatal Deviation frequently cuts back and forth between close-ups and wides. Tension gets built up in one shot and immediately released in the next. It's disorienting. These 3 compositional problems plague almost every fight in this movie. But then there's this moment. Here, the fight is filmed with the appropriate angle and distance. It actually looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Once again, through compare and contrast, we identify the film's problems. But more than that, we also learn about the secret techniques used in nearly all good movies. Have you noticed that almost all martial arts movies are shot from a low angle? It sounds intuitive, but its prevalence is something I hadn't noticed until this exercise. That's another good thing about learning from bad movies. Sometimes you only see something when it is not there. Finally, let's move on to editing. And boy, the editing is a real enigma. It somehow manages to be too fast and chaotic, but also too slow. Here, let me fix it. But those are obvious problems. What else can we learn through compare and contrast? In this bar fight, the movie does a gag that is lifted directly from Rush Hour. However, the hit in Rush Hour feels a lot more painful. Why is that? Part of it is the complete lack of sound effects. But the editing is also a big part of it. Pay attention to where Fatal Deviation cuts to a new shot. It cuts in the middle of his swing. The new shot appears, and before our eyes can even register what happened, it connects. Now, look at Rush Hour. The movie cuts here before Jackie's hand moves. The entire attack is contained in one shot. It feels more tangible and it hurts more. This is one of the reasons why we want action movies to cut less. It allows the action to be presented in whole instead of fragments, and it's something that Fatal Deviation often fails to do. The film loves to cut in the middle of an action, and every time it does that, it takes power away from the attack. Going back to Bloodsport one last time. Here, JCVD's elbow strike is edited the same way as the pool ball gag. Wind up, strike. Fatal Deviation puzzlingly uses a wide shot as the insert, cutting the strike into 3 different shots, and it just has none of the power or drama. On the rare occasion when the film gets the timing right, however, the punch actually feels really good. That's the last thing I love about doing compare and contrast. It helps you find solutions. I love bashing bad movies as much as the next guy, but it's one thing to laugh at someone's failure, it's another thing to be able to provide constructive criticism. Having been on YouTube for a few years now, one of the most frequent compliments we received is that I'm able to put things into words. And this is pretty much how I do it. I look at the animated Mulan when I talk about the live-action remake. And I looked at a lot of animated movies when I talked about the Ghibli travesty. It's not that I'm good at this, it's just that I know artists who are masters of it. You know, once you finish watching a movie called Dirty Hole, every kung fu movie just starts to look the same.
Let's kill the hole!
You start to see the formulas, you start to notice patterns. It's tempting to think you know everything there is to know about kung fu movies. And that was probably the mindset James Bennett had when he made Fatal Deviation. That's exactly why you shouldn't watch good movies only. The subtle artistry that goes into any and every film is often so invisible to us, it's only jarring when something goes wrong. By learning from both masters and amateurs, we are then able to see deeper into both sides. Hopefully, now you know the process of my study, you too can derive greater enjoyment from good and bad movies. Oh, and his gi says Tang Ping style in Chinese, so yes, this is a kung fu movie.